felt natural. Um, so today when we were discussing game trailers closing, and we talked about some of the reasons why they may have fallen. Um, and I had a little bit more I wanted to add to it, but it's like we kind of got into ad block and monetization and all that stuff, and uh, once we were done with that, I felt like it's time to move on. Right? We didn't really want to dwell on the subject, but I think some of you guys noticed that I did have more to add. I just kind of held back for the sake of continuity in the show and flow. So basically there's this, and I'm bringing this up because I have experience in this from doing several acquisitions, and several acquisitions that we ended up not following through with because of these reasons for ZAM. So here's the way it works. When you do an acquisition, here's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to look and see how, obviously you rate the site and you figure out, okay, is this site that's growing? Is it going to make me money? Is it worth the investment? That's pretty obvious, right? Everyone knows that part. The other thing is, and then another thing would be, what do you do with the people? Like, what do you do with the people that are involved with the project? Are they going to end up being redundant? Are they people that are open to working on other projects, right? That's obviously super important. Because if you do get somebody on, you get some of these devs on board, and you add them to your dev team, now are they just going to live in this siloed bubble of, this is their one site and that's it, and that's all they work on? And then what happens when the site dies and they're just out of a job, right? Or are these people like brilliant programmers and brilliant developers, where we want to actually we want them more than we want the sites? So yeah, sites are pretty good, but we maybe want them instead. So we obviously do interviews and everything, just like we were hiring them on full time. And a lot of times we're not. We're just basically, we're doing some kind of acquisition or we do like a rev share where we'll basically represent them in terms of advertising. So we'll put our ads on their site and we'll give them a cut because we could get better deals on ads and make more money, and they'll end up making more money in the process because they're using like Google Ads or something, right? So what we do is, we check out the person, or the persons, the people behind the site. We check out their obviously how successful the site could be, and then the most important part is, what do we plan on doing with the site? Do we want to look at a site and say, this is something that we can integrate into our existing platform, which we would essentially build a framework, and the framework would be some kind of unification of something as simple as logins, right? We want to have a universal login across all of our sites. So when you go to like any ZAM site, and at the top you're going to see a bar, and that bar will allow you to. It's usually like your login bar, right? Curse has the same thing. They have a bar across all their sites. What we've done is we've basically unified the login system across the board and created one central user database. This allows people to very easily jump between games and jump between sites and everything, and log in using the same login. That's what we want. We want to create this environment where they can just use the same login for every site and not have to worry about it. So that's just like one tiny thing, right? Then there's like all the data sharing between the sites, right? We want to see, we want to be able to collect all the data on what people are doing, what they're looking at and everything, because we can use that when we work with our sales team for our advertisers and say, hey, we know that people are going to come and when they come to our site, they're going to view this video or this. They're going to perform this action. We basically were able to predict based off of stats and everything that we've accumulated across several sites that to support different games and different different whatever. We're able to say, hey, the 18 to 24 male demographic, they're looking for this, and this is their habits, their viewing habits, and we're able to use that stuff internally. Normally, you'd end up paying somebody else to bring that data in, right? But if you build a network yourself, then you're suddenly generating all that content yourself, or all that data yourself, and you're able to sit there and use that for when you're setting up, for ad buys or for whatever, right? So, and then probably the most important part of that, of looking at what they've built, and if you could bring on the platform, is just basically combing the code and just making sure you're not going to spend way too much money on man hours and sanity trying to fix what they couldn't build just to bring it onto your platform. This has happened before. It's just the way it is. You get a junior dev that is building a fantastic product, but he'll start building it when he's, let's just say 20 years old, right? He's building this site. He's learning. Like he knows how to make a site, but he's still learning. He builds something that is picked up by the community, and everyone's like, "Wow, this is amazing." So then he's like, "Okay, I need to start adding more features." So as he's building more things on top of this base code, he's learning more, and he's getting better, and he's writing better code, and he's making more efficient features, and he's putting that on top of this lump of shit that he started with, right? Nothing against that lump of shit. That's what made the whole site popular. But what happens is now you have this just huge tangled mess of code, and only one guy knows how to do it, and it's full of flaws and security issues and all kinds of stuff. It works, but you're constantly having to bandage it, because every time you put a new feature out, you forgot that when you were 20 years old, right? Here you are 23 years old, and you forgot 3 years ago when you first started building the site, you put some certain, variable in that is now impacted by this new feature you put in. And so now you have to fix that. So you basically go through, and some of you guys have to watch the VOD on this, because this is basically me breaking down what I believe happened with GameTrailers, a discussion that came up on the Co-optional podcast today. So some of you guys might have to watch the VOD for this later in order to get the whole story. So if you don't, it's called due diligence, right? If you don't send in your devs to look at this company or this site that you're going to acquire, if you don't look at their code thoroughly, or you make a bad judgment call after looking at the code, you run the risk of getting in over your head. And because you're going to get in, you're going to now acquire the site, and you're going to be like, okay, now let's bring this thing on board, put it on our platform, put it on our framework. And then you get into the code and you're like, fuck. and this is real. I'm telling you, this is 100% real. You get in and you're just like, son of a bitch, this whole thing is trashed. It's going to take us, we might as well just rebuild the entire site from scratch. We might as well just rebuild the whole site, because it would take us that long to go through and fix everything. So GameTrailers was acquired 2 years ago or something, right? By I forget the name. The name eludes me right now. But basically, first it was Viacom, and then it swapped over to these other guys. Let me see if I can pull it up here real quick. So they were acquired, and what ends up happening is let me pull this up here. The actual transfer of platforms doesn't happen right away. Usually it takes a minute or several days or whatever. Defy Media, thank you. So usually it takes several months, upwards of a year. First you're doing you get the people on. So when Defy Media took over, a lot of 2/3 of the staff left. So that obviously puts a huge damper on them trying to move all this code and everything onto their platform. So they end up losing 2/3 of their staff, which is basically everyone that knows how to do anything, right? In most cases. And then they had to bring in all these new developers, get them caught up to speed on two platforms now. On the platform that they have, that's a unifying platform, right? That supports SSO, supports all that stuff, right? Then they also have to learn this other site, in this case, GameTrailers, how that was built and what they could do with that, and how they can take all of those different elements that make up GameTrailers, the game trailer, ecosystem, how it was built from the ground up, and then how can we take that and put it over here onto our platform. That process started happening probably earlier than November, but it wasn't until November that they were like, hey, just so you guys know, you guys may have noticed some things were different. This is something that these are changes that we need to put in order for us to move to the Defy Media platform. And then, so that was in November and updated through December. So basically, we knew that from November to December they were working on it. And so I believe that somewhere around that time, they thought they had a hold on it, and they're like, yeah, we could do this. We can move all this stuff over. And then they hit the snag somewhere, and come, January or something like that, or maybe sometime in that time frame, they were just like, fuck, like, it's not going to happen. Or it could have been just like a last-ditch effort. Maybe they knew it was jacked up, and as they kept pouring more and more dev time over the course of probably like a year, right? They poured more and more dev time into the game, or into the site. They end up now looking at this thing, and they're like, you know what? We just found out that we now have to rewrite, something that's going to take them months and months. And someone's just like, you know what? We put enough into it. Let's just fucking kill it. And that's it. That's all it takes. Right? There's a lot of other elements that probably come into play, but from the perspective, and this is, again, coming from somebody who has been on that side, making those decisions, directly, me, these are the types of things that happen. And these are the types of decisions that we have to make. It's like, okay, we either just let this thing float out there by itself and we just try to make as much money off it as we can, or we try to bring it onto our platform, or we just let it go, or we shut it down, or whatever. Like, that's the thing. It's like, we have to make this decision. And I think that's basically Defy Media was like, you know what? This costs us way too much money to bring it on board, and we're never going to there's going to be no return on our investment on that. Like, it'll take us years, if that, on a site that has been declining in viewership. If you check out Alexa rankings for GameTrailers, their rankings have been dropping since like last June or something like that. They dropped like 8,000 rank in Alexa, which I know Alexa's not 100% perfect, but still, it's a pretty good gauge to see if somebody's going up or somebody's going down. So yeah, that's my, as you can see, way too long of a segment to squeeze into today's co-optional podcast, but I definitely think that it is, for those of you guys who were interested in that whole fiasco, I think that maybe hopefully that was some pretty interesting information. But yep, I'll cut this out and make a highlight of it later, and I'll post it after co-optional gets posted. That way you guys will get the context of it. But I appreciate it. And I appreciate all you guys who tuned in and watched.